Let's find our seats this day. We want to ask God, or allow God to help us. Let's welcome Pastor Fred as he comes to minister.
Test 1, 2. Thanks. Good. What a blessing. What a powerful night we had last night. And it's a real honor to be here with you in this conference. Now, I have a different kind of message today. It's actually a very negative one. I call this one 10 Ways to Lose a Church. I'm going to give you advice, 10 pieces of advice how to lose your church. Now, one of the experiences that I've had in ministry, I've assisted Pastor Mitchell and Pastor Warner. And part of the job of assisting them is having to get involved with churches that aren't doing so well, or pastors that are not doing so well. And I remember a situation where Pastor Mitchell had to remove someone he really loved. This guy was very good to Pastor Mitchell. They were good friends. And it was a situation where he had no choice but to say, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. And it was very hard. And actually, my estimation and respect for Pastor Mitchell grew out of that because I knew how difficult it was for him to make that choice. And so also I would help Pastor Warner with situations. And there were some themes that would emerge in situations where pastors would find themselves in trouble. And so I decided to put a list together with 10 ways to help you lose your church. Now, this is not immorality. These are not like egregious violations. These are little things that add up and create an atmosphere where you lose dominion and control in a proper sense of what you're doing. I just want to say there's more than one way to lose a church. One is obviously to have your pastor come and say, this is not working. We're going to have to do something else. The second way is, we know people don't vote, but how many know people can vote with their feet? And they leave because like nothing's being done. And the third way is even more abstract than that, meaning that somebody just kind of gives up. I know this in the States. There are always cases of pastors that they just like where they live. They don't want to move. They don't want to mess with their kids in school, but they've disconnected from pastoring, even though they're pastoring. So how to lose it. And so I'm going to read out of Matthew 7:26, just a couple of verses. Everyone who hears these sayings of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand, and the rain descended, the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, and it fell. And great was its fall. I'm going to pray. Father, I just pray, Lord, as I use this angle, Lord, that it's understood that I'm challenging, Lord, your pastors, your ministries, God, to rise up and to pursue excellence, God, and believe you, God, for good things in their ministry in Jesus' name. So I call this 10 Ways to Lose a Church. So I'm speaking as the devil's advocate. So number 2, be an one of the pioneering because there are you get close to the floor, you gotta get some dust and throw it back in the devil's eye. You have to stay on. That they churches on the way here. I saw deliverance centers, I saw apostles, I saw all kinds of people just on the way here. And so you must understand something. When we pioneer a church, we have to distinguish ourselves from the rest of the religious world. And everybody knows that the religious church world is filled with buildings, and many of those buildings, and I'm not saying this to be judgmental, but I apologize if it's too blunt. They look very sloppy. They do not look inviting. And so when someone walks into your church, what's the difference between walking into, New Jerusalem Deliverance Center? You know what I'm saying? Featuring Apostle Mary, whatever. Adeniyi, what difference? Why is yours any better? I'm talking about they see the church, it's unkept, it's untidy, the toilets are you know what I'm saying? You're like, I'm going across the street, you know what I'm saying? This is and not only just that, I'm talking about starting as late as you want. People turn up. Now I realize, that there's a little give and take. People live in cities and whatnot, but I'm talking about holding services to half an hour, 45 minutes. I hear this about our ministry sometimes, like, Pastor, this event started 45 minutes late. It drives me crazy. Like, okay, 5, You should see our worship team. I torment them at the start of services. Listen, I've been to a Nigerian wedding. If the bride comes anywhere before an hour and a half after it starts, she has no self-respect. You know what I'm saying? I know how it goes. But you cannot take that to your ministry. It's sloppy. And he's not serious. He's not serious. He's not a serious guy. Not serious. What about, I'm gonna go there, you know. What about worship services? Some guys, their worship services, they just go on and on and on and on and on and on. You know, you can't do that. Not does it go on, sometimes it doesn't even sound that good, to be fair. You know what makes it sound good is when God's people are singing in wholehearted worship to God. That's what makes it sound good. But one of the biggest mistakes Pioneer churches make, they think they have to have the whole band. These guys sound good. You know, they've been playing together a while. But I was at a Pioneer church when Pastor Warner sent me to one of these, one of our guys. And he was actually doing quite decent. I mean, he was doing quite well. But he thought he had to have the whole complement of musicians. And he had a 13-year-old boy on the drums. And this guy was actually probably waking up neighbors for like 3 blocks. You know, he was just playing. He didn't know how to play. And the pastor, when I was leaving, he said, "Do you have any advice for me?" Or they always say that. They don't necessarily mean it, but they say it. "Do you have any advice for me, Pastor?" I said, "Yeah, about being isolated." So I won't re-preach that. But what happens to guys when you start losing your grip? You get very isolated. You don't talk to your pastor. To what is, you know, he'll never understand what I'm going through. You know, pastor, he travels, and he doesn't know what my struggle is. And then you're not relating to your brethren, because your brethren, you're either they're doing too well and you don't want to talk to them because they vex you because oh man, we had 100 people in church. That's the last thing you want to hear. And then you have to be Elon Musk. But you do have to learn how to get dominion over your money. If you don't get dominion over your money, ministry is like being in a poker game. You just keep, in America, of course, we use a lot of people use their credit cards, they're this, you know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about? You before you know it, you're pawning, your oldest kid, you're trying to stay in the game. You're trying to pay those bills. You're trying to live another day. And you start living hand to mouth. You start surviving. And once you get into that mode, it's only a matter of time before you're going to have to quit. You're going to be putting your shirt on the pile. Okay, one last. Daddy needs a new pair of shoes. You're rolling dice. You got to do, you can't function that way in the long run. You're going to lose your grip. And one day, some of the situations that I've been a part of when assisting, particularly because that's where all the churches are people that, they're not bad people, but they had no financial dominion, and they finally had to be told, that's enough. You're losing this. You're in debt. You got all these bills. Creditors are calling us now, and you're going to have to step out. So you can't just get by. You can do it for a while. We can all do that for a while. We can survive. But at some point, you're going to realize the game's over. You have nothing. Your pockets are out. Everything's gone. You have no watch. Everything's gone. It's not that you're there hoarding and trying to build yourself up at all. A lot of times you just have no dominion with money and you just lose. You lose your opportunity. Your ministry is out of business because it cannot stay. You have no financial dominion. You know what I mean? It's not solvent. Some people are very super spiritual about this. How can I think about money when I have a church to build? And one of the wrong mentalities is, my tithe wouldn't make a dent in the mother church anyway. And, we've actually been told that by somebody. This guy, he was actually quite a good disciple. He's out there, and they're like, what's wrong with, I'm not going to say his name. And they're looking and like, what are you doing? What's going on? And yeah, it's not like my tithes going to make a dent anyway, Pastor. I'm just pioneering. And it's a mentality. It's more than, do you understand? It's more than the dollars and cents. It's a mentality. That if you don't get dominion over that mentality, there's a good chance you're going to lose your opportunity to do what you're doing. So, be a poor steward. Number 6, neglect your family. Be neglectful of your family. It says in 1 Timothy, one who rules his own house well, having his children in submission. So there's a cycle to this that you watch it happen. And that is, it begins when we know, because we're out there pastoring, we always assume your family is with you. You want to lose your grip? Always assume, and that's a bad word, assume. Always assume your family is with you. In other words, always take them for granted. Just, you're with me, don't even think about them. I was talking about yesterday in ministry, always have my daughter with me. She's hungry to be involved in the things of God at a certain age, and I was like, I wasn't sensitive to that. And you have to be careful, because that's what we do. We assume they know what we're doing. And matter of fact, that is something that you would be inclined to say. Hey, you know what I'm trying? You ever said this to your wife? Come on, you know what I'm trying to do here. Are you going to be here? I got responsibilities. You understand that? I've actually said that in conversation. But you better be careful, because sometimes our ambition and pursuit of quote unquote our calling is so intense that we really lose sight of our families. We lose sight of our marriages. We lose sight of these things, not again because we don't love our wives and don't love our children, but we're so focused on trying to be successful in what we're doing and burning the candle at both ends that we just completely take them for granted. And I'm telling you, this is dangerous ground. I know what I'm saying is not easy. I pioneered. I was in San Francisco for 7 years, and a lot of this comes from that. And I'll tell you right now, you say, that's impossible. I'm already doing this. I'm already doing this. No, I'm doing that. You're triangulating, actually. You're not doing two things. You're burning the candle at three ends, if that's possible. But a major mistake is just take your eyes off your family. It's why it's very good to bring your children along in what you do, because they are hungry to do. I don't mean you make your 12-year-old head usher. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that you allow them to help you at various places and various times. And you be very careful about promoting, obviously, youth and novices. I think there's a common sense. But we're not doing that. We're saying, you're helping me. You're helping me. And so I'll tell you what, some pastors' kids have these amazing gifts that just come to the fore. But there's a nice balance. But that's the way you keep your eyes on them and you keep them with you along the way. And so you lose your family. But here's what happens. Many times, the family gets vexed with the pastor, and they start acting up, or the kids start acting up, and so the pastor realizes now he's in recovery mode. So now he has the pendulum swings to the other end now. Now he's fighting the church on behalf of his family. And oh man, we know how much the church loves to see you favor your kids. You know what I mean? They just enjoy that, and so. I've seen pastors lose churches because it's like they love the church, they love what they're doing, but then their family's all mad at them. So they run back to their family, and the family's fighting with this person and that person, and they start fighting the church on behalf of their family. And it's a lot of it is just that lack of balance. They're just swinging, trying to recover. He's trying to say, okay, I'll deal with it. I'll deal with it. Now we were kidding yesterday, but now he's using the pulpit to try to rectify all these things that are out of balance. So just neglect your family, and you're gonna see a dust up in your church. It'll always come up in the wash in one form or another. Number 6. Oh, that was number 6. Number 7. This even gets better. Be a dictator. Matthew 20, the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, yet it shall not be so among you. Jesus made a very distinct point to his disciples. In the world, leaders behave a certain way. Right? In culture, leaders behave a certain way. You know how it goes? I'll tell you how it goes. I'm up here, you're here. Just get that straight. Now we can talk. I'll tell you right now, the church is different than the world. It's not easy, but we have to be different from the world. Always lead by command. People will love you for it. Do this, do that, do this, do that. You know, in the United States and in England, and I'll tell you, I understand, you know, the scourge side of this, where people are afraid to get sacked for everything they say. But we have something called HR departments. You know, even in the military. My son's been in the military now probably 17 years. You know, you think, oh, this is the army of God, brother, suck it up. Let me tell you about the real military. The real military has something called toxic leadership. And sometimes leaders get removed for toxic leadership. The people say, this guy's a jerk. You know, and they actually lose their post. And the assumption is that just because I'm in charge, I can behave any old way. Is not the gospel. And it's easily recognizable as not the gospel. We're all human. We all have our moments. You know, we might get a little bit comfortable and snap and whatever at somebody and deal with. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a mentality. I'll tell you something else, Pastor. You see this in the pastors, the dictator pastors, and that is they always assume if you're really saved, like if you're in my church and you're really saved, you're here to serve me. Make that your working assumption. If someone is, remember, get those quotation marks right, really saved, they're there to serve you. Sometimes I hear people give advice to new converts, and I understand what they're saying. Brother, pastor, how do I get involved in this? Brothers, serve your pastor. I get all that. In other words, serve the vision of the ministry. That's kind of what they're saying. But some people take that literally. That a real disciple is there to serve you. You know, Pastor Warner was a different guy. He's in a wheelchair, but he was like, I remember, never forget what this one sister told him, told Sister Mona, because Pastor Warner never liked to make nothing out of the fact that he was in a wheelchair. And this one sister told Sister Mona, she goes, Mona, I think 400 people know that he's in a wheelchair. You know what I mean? But he just wouldn't let you open the door. Now I got bumping the door and everything. He'll go through with his chair. He was like that. He would not allow you to serve him like that. You know, one time when I was the door director, it wasn't my idea. It was some other brothers saying, "Hey, brother, what kind of disciple are you?" You know, we had just moved into a new building, and he goes, "You know, I noticed Pastor Warner doesn't have a designated parking spot," and he tried to make me feel guilty. He goes, "Man, what kind of disciple are you, brother? You should be looking out for Pastor Warner." And so he gave me some stencils and a can of spray paint. And he said, "You know, you need to go make him you need to make Pastor Warner a parking spot." So, you know, it's a massive parking lot. Parks are very big in the U.S. So, you know, I saw where he had been parking, so I went to that spot, me and this other brother, and we then spray painted over some stencils, Pastor Warner. So Pastor Warner turned up to the service. I thought he was going to give me a raise. He turned up. He was so angry. Who put this on there? Who put this on there? Like, I did. I just thought maybe, you know. I don't need there's hundreds of parking spots out. I don't need you to, and he got all over me. And you know what? And he said, you know what? Tomorrow, get a wire brush and scrub it off. I'm telling you, I was vexed. I was angry. If I would have quit, that would have been the day to quit. I was very vexed. I'm not going to lie. And so the next day I go out there. The same guy goes out there and we're scrubbing. How many know it's not easy to scrub paint off concrete? Scrubbing it off and getting finally, throwing this kind of oil on there and we finally get it off, and it was a dirty job. I was so mad, I told that brother, tonight at church, I want you to park your car in this spot right here. And he did. He backed his car up there. Pastor Order turns up. Oh, okay, he has to park in the next spot. But, I learned a lesson. I never forgot that. It's not about us, guys. It shall not be so among you. It's a bad look. Here's another thing. I'll just say that keep those aspiring to ministry busy 24/7. Listen, I'm gonna give you a piece of advice. This is my own personal advice. You can take it for what it is. Don't saddle a disciple with duties until you're ready to invest in them. I don't mean that. I mean, they can have responsibilities, but I'm talking about saddling them like your personal donkey. You don't do that until you're ready to invest in them, until you're ready, literally ready to spend money and release them. Or you have a budget to put them on staff and work with them that way. But you don't just run an eager disciple crazy. It's a big mistake. And it's a huge error. Guys make this mistake all the time. They see an eager young man, and they have to do this. Okay, I need you to do that. You guys only been saved like 4 weeks. You need to do this, and I want you to run over. Like, this is discipleship. No, mentoring part of discipleship comes as you're getting ready to release someone into ministry. You don't do that to everyday people. I was at a conference, and this guy was checking. This is when I was helping Pastor Warner, one of our guys. He wasn't doing bad in his church. He had these 2 eager disciples with him. And, okay, I want you to run out to the car and get my briefcase. All right, I want you to run ahead and, And so I just saw it. I was there, and I saw it, and I asked him. I said, so, hey, you sending these guys out to this conference? He goes, oh, no, Pastor, they're long from that. No, they're not ready. They'll maybe 3-4 years, who knows. But they're just good guys. And I said, I warned him. I said, listen, if you don't have that kind of working relationship and situation, you need to back off. These guys are not your personal servants to run out and get you this and get you that. And I said, that's okay if you're getting ready to send them out and you're working with that certain mentality. But I'd be careful. Because, oh, no, Pastor, they love it. They love it. They're eating it up. They're eating it up. 1 year later, he's at the conference. I'm in the same scenario. He's checking in. I can't help it. I have to say, hey, how your bros, man? Oh, man, they left church. And they left church? Really? I mean, I'm like, really? Yeah. And I said, so what happened? Oh, man, his wife's a Jezebel, man. Wife's a Jezebel. She didn't like you using her husband like your personal slave. I guess Jezebel was against slavery, huh? She was an abolitionist. And so dictators, and I know there are real rebels in the world. We've all I've been saved and pastoring a long time, we know. But they mark anyone who doesn't conform to this idea around them as a rebel. It shall not be so among you. Number 8, be a brawler. 1 Timothy chapter 3 says, not that the mark of a leader, not given to wine, not violent, not greedy for money, but gentle, not quarrelsome. And here's what happens. It's why a lot of churches wind down. The pastor gets offended because people do wrong things to you. I'm not saying you're wrong for being offended. I mean, life happens. People lie about you. They say things. They take your word, twist them so they can look like victims when you're trying to talk to them. It happens. But what the worst part of that is that you feud with them. You feud with people. And when you feud with people in the church that are carnal and mean and unfair, you feud with them. And then basically what you do is you come down to their level. And when you go down to their level, you empower them. You make them look as powerful as you when you go to their level. I tell this story from time to time. One of the guys called up and said, this was a few years ago, and he said, man, he goes, man, a lot of people left church. And I was like, yeah, what happened? And again, I guess Jezebel she's like La Llorona, and that's his character, goes around to all the rivers and cries for her children. Every Latin American country, there's this crying lady that goes in. Everyone's sure they saw her. But some lady rose up, in rebellion, talking da-da-da-da, and 3/4 of the church follows her out the door. And so I'm listening to the logic of this. Listen to the logic of this. Okay, I know it happens. There's somebody gets upset. They take people with them. It happens. It's part of life. But what I had the question is, why did she have so much power? Why did she have so much power and influence over your church? How? How did that happen? And my question to him is, you preach 3 times a week. How often does she preach? Why does she have more influence than you? Well, a lot of times it's because they're fighting with people. They're in the middle of these struggles. You have to be very careful. Is that, women are more sensitive. Our wives get offended. And sometimes the guys fight on behalf of their wives, as I just said. And they use the pulpit to air certain things out. But you feud with people, and you go down and they come up. These guys that take over churches, let me just throw this in. And transitioning churches can be very difficult because people might be unhappy with the change, right? And so you can be so offended by the fact that they don't like you. I'm not making it up. Sometimes they honestly don't like you. It's just they're just not digging the change, okay? And you can be offended and you can feud with those people. You got to be very careful. Matter of fact, I'll say this: some of the best people that end up helping me in the ministry are people that I could tell weren't that happy about that when I got there. But they're good people. And another question is, these pastors that feud with the old people, this guy's a devil, this guy's a this, he's that. It's like, do you think that guy hung around in the church for 12 years, stopped drinking, been faithful to his wife, tithed, waiting for the day that you showed up so he could just vex your life? Seriously. You got to think about things like that. You're not thinking about it. You're just reacting to the fact that you feel unliked or unloved. You got to be very careful about polarizing the church. One of the most vexing scenarios I dealt with back, again, I'm giving you some no names, different places. We had a church that was doing very well. But basically, without going into all the details, one of the main people in the church, he got behind on his tithe. And so this new couple says, where we come from, people that aren't tithe, you got to go. It wasn't like the guy stopped tithing. He actually, I don't know, you guys, people here bounce checks? He bounced the check. And so he hadn't made that check up. So he's still catching up, right? But he was still tithing. Anyway, the pastor says, I'm going to put you out of ministry. And so this guy thought it was very unfair. Hey, I'll catch up. It's like a bill, like a debt, right? I'm going to catch up, but no, where I come from. He wasn't directly out of Tucson. He was in one of our churches, but he just said, this is how we do it. And so this guy became very unhappy. He's sitting on the front row there, all unhappy, you know, he's vexed. And so now this little thing starts. So what this pastor does, I don't know exactly how to unfold it. He brings one of his best friends in. And the best friend at the end of the revival service gives a loyalty pledge. You know what a loyalty pledge is? All those that are with the pastor, stand up. And so all the people stood up, and this couple was just sitting there like vexed. It looked on the outside like, see, all the people are supporting the pastor, but that's not what happened. What happened after the service is the people that stood up felt manipulated, and they called the mother church saying, we don't know what this guy just did. He just said, and they were actually defensive of the couple that had to sit through the humiliation. You know, people they'll stand up if you make them, but they'll still be sitting down inside. And what ended up happening, long story short, that pastor, who I thought was very talented, had a lot of capabilities, ended up leaving, like, basically losing the grip of the church. It was like in parliamentary procedure, he had a vote of confidence, and he lost. It's very dumb. You can't just go down and fight with people. So be a brawler. And I'm going to give you two more here. Be defamatory. And that is, you sit and speak against your brother, you slander your own mother's son. Especially when you take over a church, just ridicule the previous pastor. Make sure everybody knows about his faults. So that will empower you. And make sure, especially those people that were close to him, know about his mistakes. And that will make you much stronger, won't it? Or just get involved in the fellowship scuttlebutt, people you don't even know. Just have you heard? I was at a conference one time, and this young man walked up to me. I didn't know him at all, and he says, I just want to apologize, Pastor Rubi. I hated you. Like, okay, I accept your apology. What's your name? And who are you? And why did you hate me? And he said, well, my pastor said some things, and I just, and I'm like, oh, okay, all right. He was people are getting second and third hand smoke, and they're being defamatory, and they're spreading negativity, stuff they don't even know about, and they're saying it to each other. But you know what that does to your church? It erodes it. It erodes Don't you get it? When you talk trash about somebody, it comes back to you. You know, there are these restaurants. You ever seen these restaurants under new management? And I'm like, I may have gone there before. Now I'm never going back. Because, like, what, did they have cockroaches? Mice? Now I'm worried now that they would put that sign up. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, there's a new manager. They got rid of the mice. Oh, I think I'll come again. No, it makes me worried, like what was going on before. That's what, I don't see it as some great breakthrough or, oh, now it's better. I think, okay, you guys don't know what you're doing. You're all cowboys. You don't know what you're doing, you know? When you put down the other people, you're putting down yourself. Just don't forget. Last one, be a manipulator. Paul said, this is 1 Corinthians 2:4, he said, my speech and my preaching were not with persuasive words of human wisdom, but in demonstration of the Spirit. Do not use this pulpit as your personal bully pulpit. You know what a bully pulpit is? They use that phrase in American politics. They say the president or whoever, a governor, someone in charge has the power of their pulpit because it's a step higher than everybody else. And so you can lean on a crowd from your position, right? That's why they call it a bully pulpit. It doesn't necessarily mean you're bullying. It just means you have the ability to overwhelm your audience from your position. Make every story in the Bible a parable about your church's latest problem. And we've all been there, struggling, trying to be fruitful, but you make your church feel guilty for your own sense of barrenness. So we're struggling in our own heads. I talked about the head game of fruitfulness. It's a very serious head game to it. But we have to be careful that we're not projecting our frustration onto God's people. And people in church will say, he's struggling. So let me give you one last piece of advice and I close. Never preach. Remember, I'm speaking as a devil's advocate here. Never preach faith, hope, and love, for it would be extremely difficult to lose a church that feeds on a steady diet of the three things that remain. God bless you.